If the cameras are rolling, we'll call the meeting to order. It is 7:02. First, I'll ask if there are any public comments for items not on the agenda. And in the absence of that, we will move straight ahead to item 3 on the agenda, design advice for new construction on a residential site in the Kenema National Register District. We'll call first the applicant.
I can do a brief
You've got something to say.
So surprise, yet another planner for the year. I think we've had Trevor and Kelly and Christina. And so you get me just for the night.
Is Kelly?
Kelly will be back, not next month, but the month after. And so you'll have Christina next month. So
Cool.
Good small staff. So thanks for coming for design advice. As we know, this is a continuation of the design advice from last month. As a reminder, design advice is non-binding. When each member speaks, you'll speak for yourself and not for the group. And all of this will be included into the Historic Review Board application as well. And we treat design advice similar to the land use process, even though it is not the land use process. Whereby I'll give a brief presentation, the applicant can come up, and if there are people that wish to comment on it, then they would be normally granted 3 minutes each. All right, so in this application, the application was first provided to Historic Review Board, received comments last month, it was revised. Staff provided additional comments on the revised design. And overall, we believe that the revised design still doesn't meet the intent of the simple horizontal design of a bungalow style found within the district guidelines. And so we still believe our recommendation is that it does not comply with the design guidelines. This is a highlighting of a couple of things on the design guidelines that we identified last month. We still believe the revised design does not meet those, and I'll go through some of the revised design for you as well. In particular, the bungalow design guidelines not being met is that revised hip roof design still results in a very vertical structure. The footprint and height result in almost a 1-to-2 ratio of height to length, and the columns are too robust for the Kenema and should be simplified. Of this, any singular design element can be considered. When you take a picture of them together as a whole, that is where we are identifying an issue that's not compatible with the Kenema National Registered Historic District. So let me go through this a little bit. Oh, nice mouse here. So here is the design guidelines. The structure itself is kind of hidden away from the street and the right-of-way, so it's in Kenema tucked back here, but it is within the district, so it is subject to the Historic Review Board review and the design guidelines compliance. Here is that artist rendering that you saw at the May design advice. And, sorry, here is a close-up of the structure. And some elevations. There's a detached accessory dwelling unit above a garage, which is a separate structure, which is this building here. So since then, the building has been slightly revised. Here are the June drawings, which again, staff is believing it's the same recommendation that it still doesn't comply with the design guidelines. Here's more elevations of the June drawings, which were found in your packet. And still even more. Here's some examples found in Oregon City. Here's a few from the O'Laughlin Conservation District. Oh, okay. So one thing is about an hour ago, I was emailed a couple more options for consideration by the board. So this slide in front of you includes all the June revised drawings on one slide. So all the elevations in one spot. So think of this as the Fred Meyer of slides. And the applicant had submitted to me about an hour ago a few more designs for consideration by the board, knowing that I am not the historic planner at the city and that these have not gone before Christina or Kelly. We have not reviewed them. And all I did was simply paste them onto a slide. So Todd's gonna come up here and talk about these revised options, but here's an option at number 2. And option number 3 option number 4.
Feel like having the eyes tested.
It's like a before after. So this is a bungalow option number 2, and then a bungalow option number 3, and then an unnamed option number 4. So I have them all for you in a row, and then I'm here to hopefully answer any questions that you have, but essentially everything was in the packet for design advice. We still believe that there's a gap between the building as it's proposed and compliance with the design guidelines for the Kenema National Register Historic District. With that, Todd can answer any of your questions. So the arrow. So
I'll figure it out.
go right, go right.
Todd Iceland, Iceland Architects, 1307 7th Street. And this is-
Morris Shademan, landowner.
After the last meeting, we went back and liked some of the ideas you guys came up with and looked at the hip roof option, which is the option that's presented here. We widened it out a little more, reduced the roof pitch. I did have one question about the guidelines. It says minimum 612 pitch. I think that actually should be a maximum.
That was a discussion a couple months ago,
Okay.
when we were talking about that it should say maximum.
Okay, because we would like it to be like a 412, 512 pitch on it.
I think it's an error, I think even, or weren't you here when we talked, or maybe it was Christina, that it was in the guidelines, it should say maximum.
That would make sense. So anyways, that's what we tried to do in this, and then started looking at it again after I got Christina's comments yesterday, and that's where we came up with.
Try just that arrow.
Okay. Okay, so then we started looking at what we could do on the site, because I think that's the most troublesome thing is it was being elevated with that front porch raised up. So we can come out away from the house to where our driveway is gonna be and do about a 5-foot high retaining wall. We've got it shown about 42 inches right here in this drawing. And that actually will make the construction a little simpler as well. Pretty much gets us cut, balanced, and fill on the site. And then added the dormer up there to try to give it a little more horizontal presence from the street. We're not quite to a 2-to-1 ratio. We're exceeding the 1.5 to 1, which I think is the minimum that's recommended for a bungalow design. So this is really kind of the option we're looking at, and then possibly doing a gable dormer on the garage structure as well. Now, we've gotten rid of the open railings at the porch and on the garage structure as well to try to create more horizontal emphasis there. Putting a half wall up there and changing to a shingle siding.
Can you go to 3, please?
And the third option is going towards a vernacular style. The owners are not thrilled by this, and it's not really what they want to do. They would prefer the bungalow style. This also doesn't give them the full width balcony up on the top, which is very desirable in this location.
Oh, yeah.
Can you go to 3, please?
Uh,
Yeah. Can I look
that
at
one?
that for a second?
So
Can
we're
I
looking
make-
for your advice.
Can I make a,
So the one that's numbered 4 here is the one that you're calling 3.
Yeah.
You were wanting to see 3,
No.
3, option
Yeah.
3.
This is the third
that's
option.
4, that's the vernacular,
Oh,
more
okay.
vernacular one.
Yeah, this is the one I wanted to look at.
Oh, this one, okay, with the gable.
Yeah,
Would a clipped gable roof at the front help with the, bringing down the horizontal?
You talking about extending the gable off to the left side there?
Just a clip, well,
No, she's probably talking at the front
front,
gable,
come, you know, coming down, kind of like
like a
clip
little
it.
mini.
Instead of coming out straight, because then that way, this is more vertical. Where if you do the clip gable on the end, that would be a kind of cut it and it would look kind of more, again, a little bit more of that horizontal.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's really in the bungalow.
Bungalow, okay, well, and that's why I was, you know, wasn't sure. I mean, I've seen it, but then having the braces underneath, that would do away with that. I like that you've used the shingles on the second floor and in the gable end.
And I think that the retaining wall makes a world of difference in the front elevation.
Because that's more of a bungalow feature.
Makes it fit better on the site, definitely.
I'm sorry?
It definitely makes it fit better on the site.
And there's room enough for that with the driveway.
Yes, there is, yeah.
What's the height of the retaining wall?
It would be about 42 inches. That's what we have it shown. We are in the geohazard area, and we've already addressed all that.
I'm trying to keep it under 4.
Yeah, even at 42 inches, they're gonna require significant analysis.
Oh. The left and right side look fine. It's that front elevation. There's just something about it that's, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the hip of the porch.
I mean, the porch column on the right side is not symmetrical,
extended,
and that's kind of throwing it off a little bit. That was to get it more horizontal and also to give that walkway that goes back to the garage
Yeah.
undercover.
The balcony thing up top wouldn't be indicative of it, but, or, there's something about it I'm trying to think about.
The thing that I have the hardest time getting over is that it is a full 2-story, not a 1.5, which is what I would expect out of a bungalow. That even if you had a finished second level, it's going to be, the roof line would be set up as a 1.5.
This is a very small footprint.
Right,
and
I
we're-
understand.
I mean, we're only 20 foot wide. So
Right.
there's not a lot of
Which
usable
is-
space up there.
Which is kind of the opposite of the bungalow. Usually
It
bungalows
is.
are not very dense for their footprint.
Right.
They're more sprawling.
It's almost like you're almost there with what's known as an airplane bungalow. There's one on Fifth Street, I think it's a yellow one.
Okay, I
Where
know
you
what-
basically got the second floor kind of recessed into the roof of the first floor.
Mhm.
And you're kind of doing that, but the front porch is what's not,
Well,
Yeah,
you do see some of
not the
those
front
with
porch, the upper porch, the
I was gonna say,
upper,
the front porch looks great.
the upper second floor porch, I guess.
Well, you do see the bungalows with the sleeping porches,
Yeah.
like we talked about.
Well,
and-
I saw one,
They're usually in the back, so.
I found one bungalow that had a second story open porch.
In OC,
It was in the, is not, no, it's in Gladstone, technically, it's in like by Jennings Lodge School. But it had,
let's see, it's got kind of
went all
like
the
that.
way, all the way up and it was sort of a dormer out, the porch was. So it was a 1.5
See how
story.
this,
That, yeah, like
Porch.
that house on the left, it's a transitional house.
yeah, well, it's almost like between a bungalow and like a 4-square,
It is a modified 4-square.
yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's all groovy.
Groovy.
It's just, yeah, well, I get what you're trying to do. That looks really busy with that, because the gate, the pitch is so low. Is that a 6? I can't see it. Is that a 612?
It's a 5.
5. So 5, and then you're trying to squish that fake dormer up there. It's pretty busy.
Now that's, you're looking at two.
Yeah,
Back
yeah,
at
yeah, it bounced back, but,
the,
so
One
from,
is
Kinda
without
like
the,
it.
without the extra,
yeah, and it's
Dormer.
all
wasn't one like,
hips.
or the ones from May?
Well, this one, if you could
Or did you
envision
revise?
the porch being raised up in the front.
Oh,
What if you did this, but Laura's saying that's not the style, but what if those eaves were broader, kind of like a prairie craftsman? That you've got kind of a 4 or 5 12 pitch, and you kind of stuck with this, but you brought those things out 2.5 feet?
We've got it 3 feet,
Is it a 3 now?
3 now,
With a
it's
soffit?
512.
Is it a soffit all around?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, we could do a bell cast roof or something, but I think that's getting too busy.
No. I don't. From my perspective, they all seem pretty cool. They're like 95% there, right? You know, you've got all the elements and you know what you're doing.
I think of all of them, I like number 3, the,
And then the other comment,
I don't know if
I guess
I ever
pertaining to
think so.
number
My
3
phone is
from
directed
staff
at-
is that the columns were too robust for
Like I
Keneva
saw
and should
that.
be simplified.
That's a
House.
story and a half.
not quite
it's
as
like a
battered.
bungalow with a,
Yeah, they're
Yeah, with a
just,
single porch. Yeah.
Like,
they
this
should
is
be
what-
simplified.
It's really
If you go to,
yeah.
if you're on the number 3 option,
This is what it should.
still
If you want to be.
the level of detail,
Yeah, that,
the
Number
width,
3.
the
One more.
robustness
That would
and the
be-
detail.
with that, you have this sunk
Am I going
bore
the wrong
into
way?
the roof
Wait.
like that.
Go back.
Back?
One more.
What, no,
Oh, let me go forward.
Sounded like the board was interested in number 3.
3.
Yeah.
So not this one, next one,
There.
this
There you go.
one. And so the railings are generally the
do that
same
here? 'Cause
as
you've got a
our
full
previous
second
comments
story.
before. And staff comments related to the columns were that they were too robust for Kenema and should be
Well, the
simplified.
columns could just come down and sit on top of the half wall there.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
I don't have a good way to show it, but can I share this? This is the house that I saw that, look, when I think of what this had, if you want to be totally classic to the bungalow, this is what, not saying you need to replicate that exactly, but,
But the gables, the
columns
other.
are very similar to what we
right, and I think you're not that far apart.
So you'll email that to me for the record?
Yes, I will.
All right.
That's what I was just
Just
asking
give you
about,
the
how we
phone.
put that up there. I don't know if you wanted to see as well what I'm talking about, but it's
don't know how you
very
do that.
similar to what you have.
But not.
Unfortunately, it can't, you're not gonna be able to do this exactly here because you need a bigger footprint.
Well, we could,
We need a projector.
Yeah, I know.
What's,
Slender.
you know, you've got this piece coming off that left side.
Can I see?
Can't really bring anything over this way just because of the way the position is.
because of the way the site lays
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I mean, we'd like to widen it out, but it really doesn't fit on the lot with the
Yeah.
attached garage. And they really don't want an attached garage, which is unusual, but
Right,
it makes it fit into the district better, I think, not having that attached garage.
yeah.
And you could just put the pony wall all the way across with the columns on top, I suppose.
And not have them framed in down below.
Right.
That would bring
Well-
down the bulk.
And, yeah, and that's another, I think whenever you can get rid of any kind of linear or, vertical,
Make it disappear more.
yeah. Does that help you?
So you guys are thinking the gable end rather than the hip, which is kind of the direction we had last time, kind of look at that anyways, but
Yeah, I wasn't here last month to talk about it other than I saw it, but, could, well,
I mean, Grant's right, though. We could just run the porch roof up and come back down, have a ridge going the opposite direction with this becoming a dormer in the center. It would be offset, I think.
If you can do that, to me, that's a lot truer to the style.
turn that dormer so it's parallel, going in line with the lower roof, and then bringing, is that what you're saying?
No, actually taking our porch roof and extending it up.
So that roof line, like, would go
Would
all
go-
the way to the top, so it would be more of a
It'd
one
be
and a
sunk
half
in a little
type
bit.
of
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
design.
So that
So
ridge.
this-
But wouldn't that make it look even more, look even more tall?
Well, here, let me show you what
More
I'm,
tall?
I know I have to have email to Laura, but this is a house that's over in the OC school district anyway, but it has a finished second floor with an open porch like this, but it's done as
It's
a
a lot,
story
the
and a half.
dormer's a lot smaller, but it still has the,
Do that.
and see, and it's got the columns underneath the
Mhm.
the
Just look at
bases.
the back.
Oh. Boy, it is recessed way back.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
huh? Did you see it?
I thought, yeah.
I mean, I think we prefer to go this direction if it's approvable, but if, you know, the board's having issues, we'll go
Yeah,
back to the
bring
drawing
that
board.
out and cover like it is with this. Yeah,
Coming out quite a bit.
what do you prefer?
Well, I like this one and then the one that was the bungalow front with the little dormer on it, that one, yeah, those two. This one I think I prefer the best,
This guy with that little dormer?
yeah.
But to me, the dormer brings your eye up.
We don't necessarily have to have the
More.
dormer, we could take the dormer off, that was to make it look more like.
What if that was a
bungalow.
shed dormer?
You could do a shed dormer up there or no dormer. I mean, it's a low pitch.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I mean, like,
Shed
maybe a,
dormer would be better on the side where we have the longer sides.
right,
Right.
right.
But no one's ever gonna see those sides.
Ah,
No one's ever gonna see the front really either.
Yeah,
No.
I'd almost prefer it without the dormer, really, that's the way I think would look best.
yeah, yeah,
To me, that just draws your eye
Yeah,
up, and we're trying to keep it.
and it's just decorative, there would be nothing up there, so. Yeah.
yeah. Those hardy shingles you would do?
We haven't really talked about materials yet, but
I do like the shingle, you know, the second floor and on the stuff, yeah.
I mean, our preference would be real cedar shingles, but
Yeah.
I'm not buying them though.
Yeah. Well,
Does that give you any better idea?
are we,
We don't vote, this is just advice, right?
This is just advice.
No to voting and all advice is from you as
Right, but-
individuals, not as a
but
group.
you were saying staff was not,
This is only an hour old, so nobody at staff has seen it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I got you.
So you can give, I mean, they can always choose to come back for more design advice or just run it
Which-
by
We'd like
Christina
to come back
separately.
next time with a proposal we think will be approvable, so.
Or is option 2, 3, and 4 is what you just got?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so we had just analyzed the revised May, the June option, not 2, 3, and 4.
Okay,
So they can certainly work with Christina offline if you feel like you've got enough advice from the board as a whole,
Well, any direction,
or as an individual member.
Well, I personally think that number 3 is the closest. You know, I don't know what everybody else is, without the, you know, just having the posts on the,
the gable option.
yeah. Well, the posts for the porch down below,
Coming out, just do
the
a,
columns, yeah,
Just part of the pony wall.
yeah.
and just a straight 8x8 post rather than a tapered column.
Mhm.
That would be my,
I'd still do tapered, I would think.
I think they're more indicative of the style.
Right, you just have a really wide, you know,
Provides
top
a good
cap, like
horizontal.
a 2x12 or something like that, and
Mahogany
then the
wall
column sits on
provides
that.
a good
yeah,
horizontal
right, without
Not be so
having to
heavy.
break it up with the posts at the bottom.
Yeah, and I bet with talking to Christina, you probably get it, how about the windows on the front? Are they in proportion? They seem big, on that first level.
I have something like that.
Um,
they're probably not reading as well as they should.
Right, I mean, I see the grids on the right, and I would assume that's how they'd be on the left. Okay. Yeah, what,
Normally, you guys don't want us to take windows out.
yeah,
Makes engineering easier.
yeah. Okay. I'm done.
Yeah, I agree that the option number 3, the one that's on the board now, is the closest.
Okay.
With some tweaks.
Yeah.
And I like the brace, the brace at the top, which is definitely a bungalow feature.
Okay, well, thank you.
Back. The only other thing I'm seeing, just real fast, the right side elevation, where there's that hip on the porch roof.
Change that to a gable.
Yeah, I mean, that's a simple 6, 1/2 dozen the other on cost,
Comes out like that.
but yeah.
We've seen them.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then the garage ADU. Getting rid of the railing up there and putting the half wall up there to try to keep it more horizontal. You guys have any comments or ideas on that, or?
that ADU with the patio above,
Yes,
is the intent with that to add on to it eventually, to make it a bigger ADU?
no,
It's actually gonna be like the guest bedroom, basically, because the house is only 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, but that's a full ADU, and you could,
this is a very small ADU.
Yeah, 292 square feet.
Oh, wow. It looks
that's a great
bigger than
Airbnb.
that. Airbnb is right.
Yeah,
Which would require a conditional use.
yeah, all right. Okay.
And then before you guys go, just because I forgot at the beginning, can you just state your name for the record for minutes?
Morris Shademan,
And the city you reside in?
Oregon City.
Todd Iceland,
Perfect.
Oregon City.
Our minutes person thanks you.
Thank you.
All right,
I
thank
hope
you.
that helps.
I do too.
You can argue.
No.
I didn't think so.
Item number 4 on the agenda is in fact a public hearing
I don't believe it's on this one.
for which I'm going to explain the process here, and you can follow along at home. We have 2 public hearings on land use applications scheduled for tonight. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow is set out in state law, Oregon City Municipal and Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart on the wall, public hearing procedures. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a comment card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which the card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony by stating your name and place of residence. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written materials while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed on the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentation, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed on the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the public record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both, without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issues precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So, we will now open the record for Oregon City file number HR 1803. A request for a reduction in the size of the new Tollefson House in conjunction with the construction of 23 new townhouse-style apartments on site. Does any commissioner have any ex parte conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
No.
No.
Nor have I. Have all of the commissioners visited the site?
Yes.
I have as well. For the record, all of the commissioners have visited the site. Does anyone in the audience want to question any of the commissioners about these disclosures? I will add one additional disclosure because I am a real estate broker licensed in Oregon. I do business in and around Oregon City, and I make money doing it. I have had no involvement at all in any of the action that we're working with tonight. So, with that, we will commence with the staff report.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Laura Turway, with the city. So this report was also on the May agenda item. As you recall, there was a request for continuance. The request for continuance on the first evidentiary hearing must be granted, and that's why we are here tonight. Since then, there has been some additional information that we'll talk about as well. So the proposal is for an individually designated historic structure outside of a district. In this case, we're talking about in the area of Forsyth and Harley, so think Park Place-ish or lower Park Place area. And the request is to look at the reduction of the designated area. So it's not a land division, it's not a partition or anything like that. We're just looking at the reduction of the designated area. Any development on the site is subject to site plan design review, so the applicant would have to also go through our normal site plan design review standards and code, which looks at things like building design and parking and street improvements and things like that. What is before the Historic Review Board today is just the consideration of the reduction of the landmark. Once the landmark is reduced, it would not be within the purview of the Historic Review Board to look at the buildings that are proposed as a part of a future development, which is 23 townhomes on site. So here's a little more context of the site. We're looking at zoning. The property is zoned R2, which is a multifamily residential property. You can see it's surrounded by other R2 zones, whether they're developed that way or not. That is the current zoning designation, as well as some industrial area down the hill on Clackamas River Drive, and some single-family R8 zone across Forsyth, and 3.5 across Harley as well. Here's some screenshots of the context of the area. So as you can tell, the site is on a corner of Forsyth and Harley. As we know, Clackamas River Drive is a lower elevation, and you come up the hill up Forsyth, and then there's Harley. So when you look at the context of the site, here is looking down Harley Avenue. Some additional details of the site. The home was originally accessed off Clackamas River Drive, and it also is oriented north towards the river as well, not necessarily oriented towards the streets. Here's Forsyth looking up Forsyth, so you're more on the Clackamas River Drive part. Here is the home here. Sorry. I'm new at this apparently. It's a little more context so you can get a sense of the elevation of Harley being flat and Forsyth coming up. And the context of the site that we've generally seen within the designation is mainly a field area. Here's the picture, an older picture of the home. There, as you recall, there has been a lot of work that has been done in restoration on this home over the recent years. So it's a Queen Anne. This is from the nomination. This text, it does identify mature trees on site. One of the questions before the Historic Review Board is to what extent is that relevant to the reduction of the site? Again, as you can tell from the photos, it is not a forested area, like there's no orchard or something like that on site. Here's the proposed reduction in landmark area shown in this red area. Staff had added a condition of approval to add a little bit more space here, and that's what that yellow mark denotes, is to increase 10 additional feet as a buffer from our protection. So really what the Historic Review Board is looking at is this area sufficient to retain the historic character or significance of the home, is the perspective of the staff report. So is this bubble enough for protection, regardless of whatever happens outside of the bubble? So what is the appropriate size of the area? Okay. Here's more site plans. Again, you're not actually looking at the layout of these structures, although it is informative when you're looking at the views. The site plan was designed to retain views as much as possible, the structures from the right-of-way. You could see that the structure itself is tucked back, and with that challenging elevation change with coming up Forsyth and Harley relatively flat, it's not as easy if it were on the corner because it is tucked in the back pocket of the property. So on this proposed layout, it retains views of the site here on Forsyth and here on Harley as well. So it narrows the view from Harley. We have examples of doing this reduction of landmark before. Most recently was the Hackett House on Washington Street, when the landmark was reduced to allow for construction of a hotel next door. We also have land divisions that have looked at reduction of landmarks. McCarver House, Ainsworth House are certainly examples of that, where you retain a large enough lot to make sure that the historic significance of the home is preserved. In this case, I think this area that's being preserved is about 18,000 square feet in the R2 zone. Here's the historic house right here. So a little orientation is the house faces this way. We talked about it facing north. So from the street, you're really seeing the side and the back of the house. Sorry, I just cannot get the direction this roller ball on. So here is looking from Harley. You can see the view of the site has been retained by the orientation of the proposed development. Here's a closer up view. Sorry, I'm gonna have to switch. This is not working out for me. All right, so here's a slightly different skewed view from the same perspective near the same driveway. This is an elevation looking at the historic home on the right, and then you're getting a sense of the massing of the townhomes on the left and the height. There were some conditions of approval placed on the staff report. They're listed there, and I'm not going to go through them. One thing to note is that this reduction of landmark is tied to this proposal. So if the applicant does not follow through with the site plan design review and all the other planning criteria required to build this proposal, the reduction goes away. So you're not granting the reduction effective today. Should you choose to do that, you would be granting the reduction effective based on the moving forward of the site plan design review. And again, here is that condition of approval that talks about us asking for a little bit more buffer there on the boundary of the house. One thing that I need is really good findings from you. So whether it's approval or denial, I need to know exactly why we're making the decision so I could write really robust findings for a notice of decision either way. In particular, in pulling out of the staff report, we talked about the landscaping, not necessarily associated with historic house in this context. That was mainly a field. We're thinking about a tree that's on site that we can tell you a little bit more. The applicant can tell you more about it. We saw an arborist report submitted this month as well. Also, the location of the home being in the back four corner of the lot, which provides some challenges. There are view corridors on both right-of-ways. And then the boundary being still revised to have a rather large lot, which is 18,000 square feet. And then also that there's adequate buffer around the home to continue to read it as a single family home. So we know that the whole site is going to contain multiple units and be multifamily, but does it still retain its character and historic significance as a single family home? Are there any questions that I can answer for you? No.
No questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And we'll move now to public testimony, beginning with the applicant, Lonnie Young, and architect. And for the record, state your name.
Lonnie Young, Oregon City.
Todd Iceland, Oregon City. This is actually a very unique project. Rather than do what most developers would do in the R2 zone and go in and tear down the house and go through that process, Lonnie's chosen to restore the home at great expense. And unfortunately, we didn't find the historic photos until after we'd already done a design, but I think it was not a bad design for that porch. We're not recreating history with it anyways. But the project will actually enhance the house and return it a little more towards its original orientation. Right now, you're looking at the side of it from Harley, and there's no access to Clackamas River Drive any longer. So this will at least get people to the front of the house with the layout of the site and the proposed townhomes. We're providing the view corridors from Harley and from Forsyth with the proposed landmark reduction, and we're fine with that extra 10 foot that Christina suggested. I think that'll actually help preserve the view corridor from Foresight as well. And we are giving it, you know, close to a half acre. And we're proposing to build the minimum density that we can, and that's actually including the house as our 24th unit that we need to meet the minimum density on the site.
Yeah, sorry. I think Todd hit on all the points that I really want to talk about is, you know, when we purchased this project, we, you know, decided at the very beginning that we were going to try to create a project that is not going to overwhelm the structure, and I, you know, going into it, I didn't pay as much attention to the structure as I should have when I purchased it, to be very honest, because I felt like it was outside of the, what I would say, the historic area. But that neither here nor there, that didn't change what I wanted to do. What we want to create is not a maximum density, you know, portfolio here at all. We're trying to bring in, you know, we've got a number of people that are coming into the area, and they need places to live, and we want to make a comfortable place for people to, and I think this is going to be something actually different and unique to what's going on in the area. You know, you can go across the freeway and you can see 500 units and see what that looks like. You can see multiple examples of what multi-family housing looks like, and we are not really doing that. As we stated, we're looking to come in and do the minimum that is required of us to make this thing go through. And I don't know what else is a developer, builder I can do to appease. I think that's certainly, you know, the best that I can do. And so the last meeting kind of caught me off guard just a little bit, because I felt like we had really went over and beyond to try to figure out what it is that would make people happy, you know. And eventually Harley is going to be improved, of, you know, street improvement of some kind in the future and whatnot, and so I'd like to go in and do that, and not bring in the 35, or what is the maximum density that I don't remember exactly.
I think it was 38.
38 units, you know, just to try to facilitate. And if you look at the amount of space, and again, the additional space beyond the building doesn't affect me whatsoever. I would give the absolute maximum that I could to create this, the feeling of this house being preserved. And that's about the best that I think I can do, to be honest.
Yeah.
You've read the recommended conditions for approval that Laura had on the board a few minutes ago. Are you able to work within those? If we could put them back up there, page 2 of the staff report. Yeah.
I think we do need to address the landscape issue with the mature trees. There is one mature tree. It's a large oak tree. The arborist assessed it to be about 80 years old. And it is, unfortunately, it's right where the right-of-way is. Any development of that parcel or the adjacent parcels are going to dictate its removal.
Let me know, am I okay to speak?
Yes.
And, if we look at the tree, I think we've talked about this a couple of different times now. Going into this, we were trying to figure a way to meet the minimum density that we could possibly meet on this project. And with a tree and a historic house, if somebody can figure that way that we can do this reasonably, I would entertain it. But at the end of the day, and this is coming from the arborist, any improvements on Harley, sidewalk curbs, which I think we would all agree would be positive for the area, is going to disturb the tree roots. It's going to kill the tree at the end of the day. Regardless of what happens within the property itself, any improvements on Harley is going to create a bit of a problem there. And so are we going, or is what we're gonna propose is to leave Harley undeveloped for the next, 100 years? I don't know. But I think that everything that we've done is certainly, try to figure out a way to make the project, feel proper and feel good for the changing times that we're involved in here. And, I'm certainly would love to use the tree and whichever possible. I think it was Claire there that said, can we make some benches? Can we do some things on the sidewalks? Absolutely. On the back side of, which is the front of the house now, which was the front of the house originally, shall we say, a gazebo of some kind where people can meet and, and do things like that. Those are things that are easily done. But I just simply don't see how we can meet the minimum density on this particular piece of property with the house and an 80-year-old oak tree. Now, if it was a 200-year-old oak tree, I mean, that's historic. 80 is, and it is gonna, standing alone after talking to the arborist, this tree is not going to have a long life. Standing alone there with any type of, if it's me or anybody else in the next 20 years that's gonna come in there and have some improvements on Harley, is gonna shorten the life of this tree. There's no question about that. So I don't know what else we can do other than try to.
Well, I think it's important that we separate the tree because we're asking for a reduction in the historic site, so we want to also exclude the tree, I think.
Yeah, so the question for the board is the tree tied to the historic significance of the home?
The house is older than the tree.
Yes.
Considerably.
Okay.
By a lot.
Like a couple generations.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Heilman?
We use the shot clock. Laura?
She looks like a Christine.
Got it.
First name, last name.
And then as you can come forward, if you could just state for everybody your name and then your city of residence as well.
And you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Christine Heilman, and I am overseer of Abernathy Grange. I live in Oregon City on Forsyth Road. So we pass this piece of ground frequently. I was interested in what they were going to do with the tree. We have a black walnut tree at Abernathy Grange, which is just the next lot down the road. In fact, some of your pictures show it. We had an arborist come out, and he assessed the value of the black walnut tree not favorably because it had been paved around the roots, and there was also evidence of rot inside from the forking of the tree. But we chose to continue to care for that tree, and in that respect, we removed some of the blacktop from around the root areas so that it had more soil to absorb water with. I'm sorry that they cannot save the tree. I'm glad they mowed the lawn around there so we can actually see the house now. And I would ask that the owners make a concerted effort to cut down all of the blackberries on the landmark area so that we actually can see this house from Forsyth Road, as he keeps saying that we have sight distance there and all we see is blackberries. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa? And I'm not sure how to pronounce your last names. I apologize for that.
Hello, my name is Lisa Paulin, Anzaldua, Paullin -ANZALDUA. UA, and I'm a fifth generation Park Place resident. So I've been through past Harley Road a few times, as well as an Abernathy Grange member. Just had a neck fusion and my voice is gone, so I apologize for the way I sound. I'm excited about this project, just bringing the historic home to light. My only concern is how, I guess it's hard for me to envision with all the cars and everything. I'm looking at the picture and I'm trying to see how, without any addressing of landscaping and that, how it's going to look historic. To me, if it's not going to be what our expectations are, then why are we trying it at all? If we ignore the 23 townhouses, that's fine, but the visibility, my understanding is we need visibility of the historic home from the roadways. Forsyth, if there isn't any improvement, which maybe there's going to be, the only visibility today is we've got a 2-lane road, one going up a hill and the other going down. There's no way you're going to look at that house. So that leaves Harley Avenue, and what I'm seeing is an extremely small view to the home. So I guess that's my concern. I would want something as beautiful as a home that this gentleman's spending time to reincarnate, at least look, have visibility from somewhere. And I'm not sure that's going to be enough visibility. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Newton.
Good evening, my name is Lynn Newton, and I'm...
You have to speak into the microphone so that...
Sorry, I've never done this before.
That's okay.
My name is Lynn Newton. I'm an Oregon City resident, and I live up Forsyth Road. I'm also the series for the Abernathy Grange. And I've lived in the area for about 25 years, just up past Ceres Farms. And I drive back and forth every day past there, as well as attend Grange meetings and other activities. On behalf of the Abernathy Grange, we want to be sure and set a good neighbor policy. We are a very active Grange in our community, and a lot of our community members and organizations use our Grange. The one picture that you have of the sites looking southbound, keep going. That one, that's actually taken from right next to our Grange. That's our Black Walnut there, I believe. While this is Grange property here, and while it looks fairly open, on the weekends, just about every weekend of every month, we have a lot of activity going on in our facility. During the weekends, you also have the neighbors on. It makes me dizzy when you do that.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, the neighbors on this side, looking down that way, they have, if you're standing by the Abernathy Grange, where we were in the other picture, looking down towards the house, on the left-hand side of the road, there are the other houses in the area. It's a fairly narrow road. If you have cars parking on both sides, you were all there very recently. If you have cars parked on both sides of the road, only one car weaving can get through there. What my concern is, as a Grange member, is with the townhomes and the limited parking that is going to be available for that development, where are their guests going to park? And we want to be careful that they don't see that open area by the Grange as a perfect place to park for a few hours, because our people use that use that. So we would want some protection there. I am also happy to hear that they are restoring the house. And I think it's great to bring back the old house. My other concern is a homeowner. Forsyth Road is our primary ingress and egress to the top of the hill there. We have a secondary of Holcomb Boulevard. Both roads are very busy. If something happens like construction and road improvements that are gonna be required because should this continue, this develop, am I done? Do I have a red light? No.
Yeah, you're done.
That we're going to be forced to travel the alternate route, which is Holcomb, which is already very busy, and that's gonna dump more congestion onto there. In addition, should anything happen on Forsyth Road, to me, it cuts off the neighborhood and forces too much onto Holcomb, and I'm concerned about, the amount of traffic that is going to be impeded as they come down Forsyth around that hairpin turn, to that intersection, and I can just see things stacking up.
Thank you.
And so that is a.
I'm not intending to cut you off.
But it's
We're
time, isn't
interested
it?
in the things that you're saying.
They're very important to me, and I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't go over.
You're fine.
You're
Okay.
fine, thank you.
The townhomes do look cute, but there's just too many. I like it.
Now, did you ask her?
Oh, about,
Yeah, the acting, because she talked about, like she was representing.
Cyrus Ficini.
Hello, Cyrus Ficini, Park Place neighborhood resident in Oregon City. Hello and thank you. I'd like to use my time today to give a short history of the Park Place community and perhaps add some context as to why this project and others are being met with such resistance in Park Place. So Henry Piddock opened his paper mill on the banks of the Clackamas River just upstream from the Cason Bridge, a newly constructed railroad to Portland. A village began to spring up around the mill and on the hillside above. The area was quickly cleared of its native groves of hemlock and fir trees, though the large grove of ancient Oregon white oaks was left intact with a store, post office, and several homes built under its sprawling canopy. The park was lost to the realignment of the railroad and the eventual construction of Clackamas River Drive. Forsyth was originally 1st Street, Melinda was 2nd Street, and I think it's Leo is further down or something. Anyway, that was 3rd Street. So this is actually not Park Place-ish. This is the heart of the original Park Place area. Somehow now the ravines to our south have become known as Park Place, but this really is the birthplace of Park Place. Earlier residents assumed that the park under these oak trees was the origin of the Park Place name, but no record exists to that. Little dates. In 1885, Henry Piddock moved his mill to Camas, halting the growth of the area. By 1890, the census only showed 100 people in the entirety of Park Place. By 1900, 200 people. By 1940, only 650 people showed up on the census for the entirety of Park Place. By any measure, that's still pretty much a small community, 650 people. By 1950 onward. From this point on, Park Place area developed largely as a part-time farming and garden community. Many of the residents were employed in Gladstone and Oregon City while maintaining enough land to operate small garden or truck farms. Truck farming had increased with the arrival of Italian and Chinese immigrants who were settling the northern part of Clackamas County. By 1950, with the pressures exerted by commercial, industrial, and urban growth of the post-war period, the community had already lost much of its historic character and identity. In 1954, the Oregon City Enterprise ran an editorial about the closing of the Park Place post office, which offered, "Our condolences to the Park Place people. We were always so proud of the tiny village, which was nestled on the banks of the Clackamas between Gladstone and Oregon City." Oregon City Enterprise, March 3rd, 1954. So what's my point? Oregon City annexed Park Place in the 1980s, and up until that point, it had remained an area of gardens and large lots. there is nowhere to garden around these townhomes. I'm not against the project. I would rather see 30 apartments in some well-built, single buildings that provided playgrounds. You know, I know it sounds difficult to do, but I think it could be done. I think the parking is another major issue. And what else? That's all I have. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for the history lesson. Alan Redbourne?
Alan Redbourne, Park Place, Oregon City resident. So I just gave Laura a copy of something that I went around the neighborhood with, because last time I asked for a continuance, because I just kind of found out about the project a few days before, and I wanted to talk to the neighbors around it. So I had documented 6 reasons why I thought saving the Tollefson house, the landmark as it is now, is important. And she'll give you the document later, but reason 1 is the size of the land. The acreage that the home resides on is important to its historical relevance. 2, the centuries, well, it's not that old now we know it's 75, but the oak tree on the corner of the property is an important part of the historical landmark. Being able to see the home, it being conspicuous, is important to the landmark significance surrounding it. With new constructions negatively affects its visibility. So I agree with the lady from the Grange that the view is very limited. Placing newer buildings on or around the landmark reduces its historical significance. Reason 5, maintaining the historic properties in their current state in Park Place is important to me, and the Tollefson house contributes to the integrity of the pertinent historic period in the neighborhood. And the last reason, it is an important and critical element in establishing or contributing the continuity or character of the street, neighborhood, or community in its current state, and reducing the landmark would negatively affect said contribution. So I kind of just went through what makes a landmark historical landmark, put those down as reasons, and I went down to everyone within eyeshot of the property and got it. So there were only 2 houses that didn't answer the door. But I got a signature from everyone that lives around the property. The X's on the side are saying which reasons they agree with, which happen to be all of those reasons. I'll try to keep it short. I'm at a minute. Okay. So the developer keeps mentioning, oh, the improvements are going to kill the tree on the street. I don't think the Grange has any intentions of making improvements, and you can see that it's not a very dense residential area, so I don't expect there to just be improvements going on all the time. I probably could have got more signatures, but I don't know all the houses that the letter went out to. I just happened to get one, and I just went to everything within eyeshot. Everyone that answered the door was excited to sign the petition. There were at least 3 things common with every interaction I had with my neighbors. 1, they all thought it was sad that the Tollefson property was basically being destroyed and were upset about the idea of apartments. That the builder never spoke to them to get their opinion on the build. A few of them didn't receive the city mailer. And that they were all grateful that I was taking my time and wish that they could be here themselves to voice their opinion. And part of my signature here says that I speak on behalf of them as well. The Tollefson property has a big impact on the neighborhood. It lets the area breathe and remind you of an earlier time. You see the home and the old trees and you feel a sense of peace and connection to the past. You can't say that reducing the property size and surrounding it with 23 apartments doesn't affect the home's historical significance and doesn't impact the neighborhood. If the reduction happens, the Tollefson property as it is now will be sorely missed by all those around it and in future generations of Park Place. I have to say that I found this process in the last month a bit disheartening. It seems that this project, which adds no value to the neighborhood and no value to the city, is being pushed through with little regards to much process or precedence. Cyrus was going to speak about precedences, but I guess he ran out of time. But removing a historical landmark within the middle of a residential neighborhood to place apartment buildings seems a little strange. The Park Place Neighborhood Association only gave its blessing on the project because they were told by the builder that they went to the surrounding residents and that they were all fine with the project, which I now know is not true, and that's on here as well. Then they were also told that the oak tree was in poor health, which we also now know is not true. It would have been already approved to be cut down had I not asked for the continuance last month. So I found it a little odd that the arborist went out to find out if it was healthy after finding out, or after the approval would have been given about it. So that just happened 4 days ago, and it just kind of makes me wonder what other processes are kind of just being sloughed through and swept under the rug to get this thing going. And that's it. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions about the.
No. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, we will close the public hearing.
Rebuttal.
Pardon me, yes, rebuttal from the applicant, I'm sorry. We're trying to get done in a hurry.
I'll make it quick. Todd Iceland. We will be widening both Forsyth and Harley Avenue and making improvements, including curb, sidewalks, and half-street improvements, which will. Half-street, which will help the parking situation for the Grange and the neighbors across the street as well, and make the road safer. I really feel like, Lonnie's made every effort here to try to preserve the house, and rather than go in and ask for a demolition, which would be more typical of most developers. I think he's trying to be a good steward of the property, and I think actually reducing the landmark size, similar to what was done for the McCarver House and the Ainsworth House, actually will help preserve the resource. And those are both excellent examples of where the resource has been preserved because of the surrounding development. It's been able to support the ongoing maintenance and everything of these older homes that require extensive maintenance. We did go to the neighborhood association, and the neighborhood association was very supportive of the project, so I don't know where there was miscommunication or neighborhood breakdown there.
So you attended the neighborhood
We
association
did attend the
meeting?
neighborhood association meeting. We never talked to any of the neighbors adjacent to the property. I don't know where that information came from. But they were very supportive of the project, though. So I guess we'd just like to ask for the reduction as proposed and recommended by staff be approved, and so we can move forward with this project. We would have liked to have gotten all the utilities and everything in this year, but the clock's ticking right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions?
No, go ahead. I'm going to allow you to come up because you've got your hand up.
You'll have to allow the applicant to come back again.
Sure.
Yeah. Just.
I just wanted to mention, Alan Redbourne, Oregon City. I just want to mention that the information that I have from the Park Place Association was from the chair, and I have it in an email saying that he asked specifically, have you talked to the residents? And he said, yeah, this is from the email that I have. And he said, did the residents have any objections? And he said, no. I'm not sure which one of them it was, but that's what I have in the email. So that's why they kind of said, okay, that's fine, we're good to go.
Okay.
I can forward that to you if you want.
You would have to provide any information while the record was open. If the Historic Review Board closes
I can
the
do it
record,
right now.
you couldn't, so.
Okay.
It was in their last meeting. It's already in the record, I believe.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lonnie Young, owner at Oregon City. As far as the oak tree is, the information that I received came from my developer excavator who developed the piece of property directly across the street about 15 years ago, I'm guessing at this point, maybe 12. Every time I purchase a piece of property, I try to do the best I can to go through and see what's around, what's going on. And he made it very clear that when he developed those 5 lots, there are 5 homes there were 15 to 20 of these trees-ish, and I don't want to put an exact number on that, but that were of the same era, same size, and fell under the typical Oregon white oak scenario, which is a little hollow in places. And he was able to push those over. He went through some debates with, had arborists out. So I took that information as such. Did not intend to mislead anybody. And as far as the people at the Park Place neighborhood, I attended that with Todd Iceland. He sent out the letters. We did what we felt like we needed to do within the neighborhood. And it was positive. So from that perspective, I think I did everything I could do until this was brought up, and we went ahead and moved forward on the tree. And I think we've decided the tree is not historic. It's 75 years old. It's nowhere near what the house is. So and as you can see from this picture, the tree canopy comes halfway into Harley at that point, I mean, and so what do we do as far as no development ever on Harley? I see that as being a little bit presumptuous from anybody to think that in the future there's not going to be some sort of improvements on a road within Oregon City. So I think that's where we came up with the fact that the tree is going to be compromised at some point. So there you go. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for your participation in the public hearing, which now we will close and move to deliberation. So I'll first ask if any.
So a couple things real quick. I'm gonna flip to, sorry, close your eyes for 1 second. Okay. Sorry, there's like 4 mouses right here. There's a lot going on. We need an explanation of findings, so a good discussion is recommended from the Historic Review Board. In addition to the items on the list, I want to make sure we talk about the historic significance as it relates to the tree, the visibility from Harley and Forsyth, and it's really the reduced visibility from Harley, and then also talk about the third thing, which is the impact on the historic character of the neighborhood. I do want to acknowledge that as provided in the information, which is already in the record, the site is not within a historic district. It is an individually designated structure on its own. So it would be different than McLaughlin or Kenema, where you are considering historic nature of a neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Who wants to say something here?
All right, I'll throw my comments out there. I like the tree, but like Claire said, it was not there when the house was built, and it's not part of the original context of the home. So the nature of having trees and landscaping is part, but not that tree specifically. So I don't feel that there's any compelling reason that that tree alone would justify not reducing the size of the historic property. Regarding the views, I think we looked at the plat map, the original plat, in the design advice session several months ago. This home was oriented in a very specific manner towards the river. The sight lines that were really intended to be the main sight lines for the home were to the north and to the west, and those are gone already because of the other right-of-ways that have already been vacated and the other construction and industrial zone there, which is unfortunate because that's really where I would like to have the sight lines, is to the front of the house and that. So I don't see that the reduction of the views out from Harley and Forsyth are that significant, because those are the two least architecturally significant sides of the home. And we're always, built, it was intended to be the back of the home and was not intended to be the main access to the house. That's my 2 cents.
John, you want to go next?
No, I'm good.
I have a couple things, and a lot, some of it's kind of replicating what Grant said. You know, the visibility is rather limited now. And I know it'll be a lot more when it's done, but I think clearing, as somebody mentioned, clearing the blackberries and stuff like that, you would still be able to see. As part of any kind of development, from what my understanding is, they have to do like a half-road improvement. So that would, you know, irregardless of what else was built there, it would affect the livability of that, or the viability of that tree.
Sounds good.
And somebody had mentioned about parking, you know, those things are outside, you know, our purview. They'd have to, you know, figure that out. I had some, if you could go back to where it shows the outline of the new historic, yeah. The right above the house is where, well, where the parking comes in there. That's going to be within the historic district, so anything that would be, if they wanted to build it, would still have to come back to us, right? But they are going to be paving that, correct? Are you?
This proposal.
Yeah, right up in there. Is that paved area, right?
Yeah, this is paved area, so it's a turnaround for the sidewalk. Yeah, they would have to, this is simply for the reduction of the landmark. They would have to come back to do anything on the landmark.
On that thing.
Since the proposal was tied to this specifically, that these improvements were.
Oh, sorry. This is part of this proposal. It's on your site plan.
Right,
So this paving, the paving part.
Paving, right. But if they, because it's within the designated, the newly designated area, if they wanted to do any other kind of building over in that area, it would have to come back to us.
Correct. There are no
It would have to come
structures in
back
this proposal. Any
Okay.
future structures within the boundary that we choose
And
would
is
have to
it
come
like
back.
only like 10 feet to where the parking is? Is that all that there is, as far as a buffer between the house and the?
You're talking about this distance here?
Yeah, right.
It's gonna be slightly more than 10, so this is about 20-ish. So yeah, somewhere between 10 and 20. Normally sidewalks are about 5 feet.
Okay, 'cause that's awfully close.
So it's probably 15-ish.
Flat. I mean, it's
Yeah.
sidewalk and pavement,
Yeah.
not structure.
And, you know, unfortunately, you know, there's other properties, we redeveloped or restored the Ainsworth House, and it had, you know, they built a lot more houses around it than that, but it did protect it. So it's a way, you know, a lot of times you just can't. It's better than tearing the house down,
Well,
so.
in the end, it created more of a gem, I think,
Mm-hmm.
in those situations.
Right,
Got that right. Yeah,
so,
brought more
Which-
attention to them.
Relates a little bit to a comment I want to make, which is not necessarily germane to the discussion here, but when this first came on the radar as a future hearing for the HRB, I drove over there to look at it, and what I saw was a outbuilding overgrown with blackberries and the roof falling in. The house itself was covered with blue tarps and had been for some considerable time. So I want to just commend the owner on having put the energy, money, and determination out front to save a house that was really on the verge of falling in on itself, or appeared to be.
it would have been easier, yeah.
So, just wanted to get that said.
I'm good.
Okay, can we go back? Yeah, thank you. My observation about the landscaping that was offered in the context of the historic structure. It seems that most of that was gone before this project ever came up. Doesn't it seem that way? I saw blackberries
Buffers, yeah.
and
Tall grass.
a lot of that too. Who knows what else? But I didn't see any actual landscaping. Now I think that some mitigation in landscaping can really help with
Stand out.
not restoring the historic character or recreating it, but in building a character around it that's complementary to the structure.
For any kind of motion?
Regarding the location, well, I want to address the findings here
Yeah.
first before we go to a motion.
Can we
The
just summarize some
revised
things?
boundary is over 1,800 square feet, and that's nearly 4 times the standard 5,000 square foot lot. In fact, a lot of the standard lots in Oregon City now are sub 5,000 or 3,000 in a lot of cases. So this is really a substantial buffer around the historic property, even though it's not a farm like it was when the house was built.
It's a buffer, but there's, a lot of it isn't very contiguous to the house.
True.
You know, it does, with the proposed boundaries, it does, you know, encroach on the house quite a bit. But with the way that everything is laid out, you know, I know it kind of ties their hands.
Can I summarize some things for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Just, so typically you would make a decision and then I write all that up in some findings and send it out before sending it back to you, so.
So can we go with what your findings are, or are there additions or revisions or whatever?
Let me try and summarize it and tell me if I'm missing something, or if you wanna add something, if that's okay. In addition to everything that we found, so some bigger picture things, regarding the relationship of the tree to historic significance. Tree is not as old as the house, it wasn't part of the original context. There is some things in the staff report that talk about it being not a treed site, or in other words, the context of the historic home had a lot of open space or a large field with trees in it, as opposed to, which had a looser connection to the historic significance of the home itself. Though trees were likely present, just not at the mass that led to the designation or historic significance of the home. And this one in particular is a little bit newer and wasn't there, is only 70 years old. And it looks like it is compromised by some street improvements, things like that as well. So it's not a part of the original context home, and even though there are trees on the site, it's not part of the historic designation of home. The orientation of the home facing north also limits its views. So the primary views, which would be the north and the west, are already compromised by some changes to the plat with right-of-way vacations and constructions that happened. So all that's left are the views from Harley and Forsyth. And so those are the views towards the least architecturally significant elevations, which were not intended to be the main or have main access from those frontages anyway. And so with this proposal, we're maintaining access from both frontages, that we recognize that the visual access from Harley is being reduced, you would still have access to see the home. And you could see it better than with all the vegetation or tall grass or blackberries or whatever, what there used to be anyway, because you would have that drive aisle, so you would have a maintained open, clear view. Let's see. The site is not in a historic district, so it, the size of the landmark has no relationship to any larger historic district because Park Place is not a historic district. Sorry, lots of pages of notes here. You guys are doing good with findings. Parking and parking, street improvements are outside the purview of the Historic Review Board, and those will all be dealt with in site plan design review. And that the site itself is so large, the 18,000 square feet, which is much larger than the 2,000 square feet, which is the minimum lot size in R2. And anything else that's written right there on their list. Is that about right?
Yes.
Yeah, so what you have there, we could make as part of a motion, correct?
Yep. And,
And, just another thing, what I was saying about the half-street improvement would affect the quality, even though that's outside of our, it would affect the quality of life of that tree anyway, which is required.
okay. Perfect. And there are the conditions of approval, should you choose to amend.
Let's see how we do this. We could do it, I could, let's see.
File number is HR 1803.
Yeah. I would make a motion to approve PC 18085, HR 1803, reducing the size of the new Dolphin House in conjunction with the construction of the 23 new townhome-style apartments on site with conditions of approval and staff findings that
Or read into the record.
have been read into the record by staff. Does that sound right?
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
We're motion and second. Shall we poll the members?
All right. Board Member Blythe,
Aye.
Board Member McLaughlin,
Aye.
Board Member Met,
Aye.
need to say a shorter thing, Board Member Stobie,
Aye.
and Chair Basinger.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Very good, thank you, and thank all of you. At this point, we will move on to the next item on the agenda and reopen the public hearing.
Oh,
And for a change, we'll ask Todd Island to come forward after the staff report.
All right, so no new disclosures on this one. The only question that I have for the commission is if you have any,
Conflict of interest one?
I want to get this one right. For the record, does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare? And have you visited the site?
no and yes.
No and yes.
No and yes.
No one, yes?
No, yes.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners?
We lost, we
Can you
drove them off.
Do you have a disclosure as well?
My disclosure is again irrelevant to this property, but I am a Realtor and people pay me to assist them in the purchase and sale of residential properties in and around Oregon City.
All right. Anyone wants to question the board? No, okay, all right.
We are merely, can I ask staff a question? We're merely renewing an approval that's been expired, correct?
True statement.
Okay,
This thing has,
so we can make it quick.
okay,
remember-
making it quick. So we had a house,
Yes.
it was burned, there was a gas explosion, it's no longer
I
there.
remember when that house exploded.
Yeah, so it was
They
single.
were on the front porch and they got blown out.
Oh my
Yeah, it was,
Better on the
My
porch than
goodness.
inside.
yeah, they were trying to get out.
How long ago was that?
That's when we
All right.
lived in the
So this has been before the Historic Review Board before it's zoned mixed-use corridor one. It's in our McLaughlin Conservation District. The here's a context of the site. You can see nearby are lower story buildings that it is surrounded by. Some more context on Center Street. The applicant has proposed the same design that you've seen before. It was approved by the Historic Review Board in 2015. Building in a historic district, when you're building something that is commercial, is complex, or multifamily is complex, and so it includes multiple processes. So on this case, their site plan design review is still valid until mid-August, and this historic review board had expired by just a short bit of time. And so the applicant has to come back to the historic review board for a new decision. Our code only has a certain time limit on approvals. This has not changed since last time. The context of the proposal is, we believe, within keeping with the McLaughlin Conservation District and development pattern within McLaughlin. So there is a modest parking lot tucked behind the building. The building is oriented towards Center Street. You can see a streetscape. It's a Queen Anne Victorian style, similar to other buildings nearby. The applicant it included in their proposal a reduction of the floor height. In the site plan design review standards, we have a floor height requirement for 14 feet. And in order to honor and be sensitive to the heights of the buildings adjacent, the applicant has proposed an 11-foot floor to ceiling height on the first floor and a 9-foot on the second. The siding is consistent with street facing and with a large entry covered front porch as well. It's a simple design consistent with homes in 1880 to 1910 in the neighborhood and has the appropriate amount of detailing. Here's some other elevations for you as well. And we put together a list of recommended conditions of approval, which should look pretty familiar, which is the same as HR 1503. With that, I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody?
So no changes from previous application?
No.
Well, just the lower the ceiling heights, right?
That was
No, we did
approved
that.
last
Oh,
time.
the last one? Oh,
We
okay.
did that.
I did talk to Denise.
You wanna come up?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, do you want to open the hearing? Or I guess you already
Yes,
opened
we
the hearing
opened
by
it.
us.
Todd Iceland, Oregon City. I did talk to Denise McGriff, and she asked me to relay that she did not have time to prepare comments from the neighborhood association, but they supported this because the changes were all done previously to satisfy them.
It fills an empty lot that's been there a long time.
Yes, the developer finally secured the funding to build this. The approval has lapsed twice now, so.
Okay, and you have no other changes that you're
No.
making with the
No, we'd
project?
just like to
and-
see it
and
get
you're-
built and-
You're fine with the conditions of approval that were applied with the previous approval?
Yep.
Okay,
Cool. I move that we approve
we can't do that yet.
Gotta close.
Oh, you closed, yeah, sorry. We're just ready to move on.
We want,
Ready to go.
Yeah.
thank you for your input, you can tell. that
My
we're-
goodness, you're a busy man.
Yes,
The preferred architect,
And with-
historic architect.
with that,
We have no preferences, or we don't recommend anyone in particular with the city.
we will close the public hearing and move to deliberation and/or motion.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did you want a question?
Yeah.
Or did you want to make the motion?
I move that we approve HR 1806, approval of a new office building in the McLaughlin Conservation District as per previously approved.
I would second that.
All right, let's start the other way. Board Member Stobie.
Aye.
Board Member Met.
Aye.
Board Member McLaughlin.
Aye.
Board Member Blythe.
Aye.
Chair Basinger.
Aye,
Motion passes.
Very good. Good to see you, Todd.
You too.
Cool.
All right.
I spent the whole evening.
I don't have any communication for the group, other than you'll get Christina back next time and then Kelly back after that.
I do have an announcement. July 27th, which is a Friday night, the Trail Band, which used to play a lot, they were Quarter Flash. I don't know if you guys have.
Quarter flash?
Yeah, it's Quarter Flash, is the same members.
Serious?
But they're playing.
is now called the Trail Band?
Well, Quarter Flash, there's Rindy and Marv Ross are the originals, and there's overlap in a few of them. Anyway, they're going to be performing at the end of the Oregon Trail as a fundraiser, in conjunction with the 175th anniversary of the Oregon Trail. And there's going to be a dinner prior to that that the Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition, which I'm on the board, is doing a dinner. It's a farm-to-table dinner provided by Allium over in West Lynn. And also it's $60 per person. And then you can watch the performance there, so from up there. And like I said, it's a fundraiser for us, and they'll be having dinner with us too, so.
If we're gonna get Quarter Flash, could we get 1980s pricing too?
No. They didn't have farm to table. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with farm.
Oh, yeah.
Farm to table dinners are quite the rage, but a lot of them are like $75 to $100, so. And that includes a glass of wine or beer.
And actually, I lied, I do have one announcement, and that is that I wanted to invite you to the grand opening celebration of the Ermatinger House.
Yay!
On Saturday, July 7th from noon to 4 p.m. Come join. The Ermatinger House, as we all know, is located at 619 6th Street.
Cool.
And there will be light refreshments and food, food cart, beer craft debut, the Ermatinger Ale by Coin Toss Brewing, live music, guided tours, activities, games, fun for the whole family.
Cool. Cool. And I'm looking for old books to go in the house.
Old books.
Old books,
Old people.
pre-1850s books.
No, they'll be there full
All right, we adjourn?
Yeah.
We are adjourned.